Displacement. When George slept, time awoke. George Ellison only wanted to sleep. Time had other plans. George Ellison had lived 74 years on Earth. He'd earned every one of them, some hard, some kind, and all of them rooted in the ordinary rhythms of life. He was a retired systems analyst, meticulous by habit, curious by nature. Not much surprised him anymore. He lived a good life, quiet, content, and filled with family. George had been married to Martha for over 4 decades. They'd raised 2 children together, both grown now with families of their own. Grandkids visited often, filling the house with noise, stories, and sticky fingerprints on glass tables. 2 beagles, Max and Daisy, always trailed close behind him, loyal shadows with wagging tails and a knack for finding sunlit spots to nap in. After returning from a well-earned holiday in Cairns, coral reefs, humid air, soft-voiced tour guides, George felt the stillness of home wrap around him like an old cardigan. That night he brushed his teeth, gave Max and Daisy one last ear scratch, glanced at the old wind-up clock on the dresser, and slid beneath the covers beside Martha. 10:41 p.m. The last time Earth would ever make sense. He awoke with the sense that something fundamental had slipped. The ceiling was gone. In its place, a canopy of stars, shifting and layered, like time-lapse footage bleeding through itself. Structures rose around him, not buildings but remnants, half-recognizable technologies fused with elements no human had ever named. The ground pulsed faintly beneath him, like it too had a heartbeat. Gravity still worked. That was something. But the air carried a low frequency, a hum like distant data streams feeding into his bones. And overhead, suspended in a sky that couldn't possibly exist, strange vessels moved between broken rings of orbiting light. George slowly got to his feet, no aches, no fatigue. Only one thought repeated in his mind, like a boot loop stuck in code. This is not Earth. This is not time. And then, as if summoned from the gaps between seconds, a voice, not spoken but etched in resonance, whispered, "Chrono Legion." Something had fractured. Something had pulled him here. And George, ordinary, retired George, husband, father, granddad, and beagle whisperer, had just become part of something far beyond comprehension. Chapter 1. The Spark of Time.
When time trembled.
Somewhere in the void between realities a heartbeat stutters, not flesh but energy. Not blood, but time itself. Across fractured skies and forgotten ages something awakens. The silver pulse, the unseen rhythm binding past, present and future, is breaking tempo. The world doesn't end with a bang. It fractures. In New London, steam howls through cobbled streets as brass machines spark to life unbidden. In Neo-Tokyo, neon lights glitch and flicker, casting shadows that don't belong. In Eldoria, stars vanish behind storm-wrought clouds, ancient runes glowing with long-dormant fear. And far beyond the stars, a commander drifts alone, watching galaxies ripple like reflections on water. The signs are clear, the warning, universal. Time is bleeding. But from the edge of apocalypse, a gathering begins. An inventor rewrites the rules of physics with a whisper. A mage seals arcane fissures with trembling hands. A hero catches lightning mid-air, swearing at fate. A pirate sails into storms that don't obey oceans. A god walks between seconds. A warrior hears forgotten constellations cry out. They should never have met. They were never meant to. And yet, drawn by destiny, scattered legends converge, each a thread in a tapestry unraveling at both ends. They are remnants of countless worlds, and together they are the last chance to stop what's coming. The tempest stirs, the silver pulse screams, and across every timeline, a single truth rings out. Unite, or everything ends. In Chapter 2, next, as time unravels, ancient powers awaken. From desert gods to alchemists lost in time, echoes ripple across eras. hero, decoding the anomalies affecting their worlds. Their collaboration revealed a pattern, a convergence point known as the Silver Nexus. Meanwhile, the high fantasy mage gathered ancient artifacts, preparing for a ritual that could stabilize the temporal disturbances. The heroes began to realize that their worlds were not isolated but interconnected, each echoing the same ominous warning: the tempest is coming. Next in Chapter 3, storms gather. Across oceans and skies, new allies sail toward fate, and the first true meeting begins. Chapter 3, Gathering Storm. The swashbuckling pirate captain, navigating the treacherous seas of the fractured realms, discovered a map leading to the Silver Nexus. The map pulsed with energy, guiding her ship through storms and illusions. In Eldoria, the high fantasy mage completed the ritual, opening a portal to the Nexus. Stepping through, he found himself aboard the pirate's ship, much to both their surprise. Simultaneously, the cyberpunk hero and modern superhero activated a device that transported them to the same location. The convergence had begun. The heroes exchanged stories, realizing that their individual battles were fragments of a larger war against the Tempest, a force threatening to consume all timelines. As the ship sailed towards the Silver Nexus, lightning crackled across the skies, and a voice echoed through the void. Your worlds end unless you stand united. Next in Chapter 4, in the shadowed forests of Arcana Vale, forgotten magic stirs. A warrior walks through legends, and an unlikely detective arrives. Chapter 4, Arcana Vale Rising. In the deep woodlands of Arcana Vale, magic hung thick as fog. Trees whispered secrets in ancient tongues, and moonlight never quite reached the ground. Amid a ring of glowing stones, the high fantasy mage stood with staff planted firm, chanting words no mortal ear could endure. The air rippled, and the runes beneath his feet flared with silver fire. He could feel it. The silver pulse was near, disrupting the very weave of reality. From the shadows, armor clanked. The fantasy warrior stepped into the ring, blade drawn but not raised. I felt the call, he said, voice low. And the storm? The mage gave a solemn nod. Time bleeds. Even the stars have begun to forget their names. Before they could speak further, a strange shimmer tore the air beside them. Out of it stumbled a man in dark clothes, his eyes sharp as a hawk's. Pardon the intrusion, said the Victorian gentleman detective, adjusting his coat. But I appear to be rather far from London, and far deeper into mystery than I'd intended. The ground trembled, and wind twisted unnaturally around them. Leaves rose into the air like spectres, forming a spiral. The pulse rang again. The mage's eyes narrowed. He knows we're gathering. The tempest had found Arcana Vale. Next, the stars cry out. In the silence between worlds, a commander, a god, and a hero float toward destiny. Chapter 5, Among Stars and Shadows. In the silence of space, aboard the Oblivion's edge, alarms wailed. Stars blinked in and out beyond the viewport like faulty lights. The galactic commander gripped a command rail as time distortions flickered across the nav screens. His crew had vanished minutes ago, or had it been hours. He activated his suit and launched into the void. His boots met the fractured edge of a satellite, and there, suspended in a bubble of frozen time, drifted the modern superhero. Hey, he muttered as he freed him. Next time I try to stop a bank robbery, remind me not to punch a hole in space-time. They floated together as the stars swirled unnaturally. Then, lightning crackled in the vacuum. Not plasma, not fusion. The mythological god emerged, walking effortlessly on nothing, eyes glowing with electric fire. I was summoned, he said simply, by the storm. The commander nodded. Then welcome to the resistance. As the three stared into the shifting cosmos, a vortex opened above. The very stars began to weep. The tempest had reached the void. Next, a skyship roars through broken skies. Time is a weapon, and a storm laughs in the face of fate. Chapter 6. The Devil's Laugh. Clouds parted in the skies above the fractured realms as a monstrous airship surged through. The storm, the Devil's Laugh, its sails blazing with arcane symbols and stolen time. At its helm stood the swashbuckling pirate captain, blade drawn, laughing against the wind. "To starboard!" he shouted. "Tear the sky a new one." Lightning cracked the mast, and a bolt arced toward the deck, but he caught it with his blade, redirecting it into a cannon. From the swirling mists, a form leapt aboard. The cyberpunk hero returned from Dustrock. "This ship's insane," he muttered, and yet, came a voice behind them. It may be the key. The high fantasy mage stepped onto the deck, transported by magic. Beside him, the modern superhero, adjusting his cracked knuckles. "We ready for the big one?" Above, a rift opened wider than before. The silver pulse pulsed once, twice, and then screamed. The tempest had arrived. Next, the final convergence begins. At the heart of all things, the silver nexus pulses, and the Legion prepares for war. Chapter 7. The Silver Nexus. At the center of the fractured realms, where all times touched, stood the Silver Nexus, a tower of energy reaching into every reality. The Chrono Legion, now assembled, stood on the precipice. Each had been shaped by different worlds, bound by different codes, yet united now by the pulse. The Victorian inventor activated his multi-dimensional compass. This is the moment. We anchor the pulse, or it resets everything. The Renaissance alchemist poured the final elixir onto the platform, while the galactic commander and Norse warrior prepared to defend them. The fantasy warrior and cyberpunk superhero stood back to back as the sky shattered above. The tempest descended, a vortex of storm and memory. But before it struck, the silver pulse surged into the heroes, lighting each with pure potential. In that instant, time stood still. The Chrono Legion struck as one. Next, the battle is over. Or is it? As the dust settles, the future stands unbound, and time takes a breath. Epilogue. Chrono Unbound. The tempest was not destroyed, only quieted. The silver pulse, now stabilized, hummed with a new rhythm. The fractured realms began to mend. Some heroes chose to return to their time. Others remained, forging a new world born of many. And high above, watching with eyes like mirrors, the silver pulse waited. Because time was never truly linear. Ending Displacement. George Ellison awoke to the faint tick of the wind-up clock. The ceiling was back. Plain plaster instead of starlit infinity. Morning light leaked through the curtains, the smell of toast drifting, faintly from the kitchen, Martha already up and moving about. For a long moment, George simply lay still, listening, feeling, cataloguing. His chest rose and fell. The floor no longer pulsed. The air was just air. The hum of the fridge, not the hum of time. Ordinary, comforting, real, and yet, when he sat up, something gleamed faintly on the bedside table. A thin shard of silver crystal, no larger than a large button, humming ever so slightly in rhythm with his heartbeat. He hadn't owned it yesterday. He hadn't owned it ever. George reached out and touched it. For an instant the world slowed, every sound stretching, every shadow bending just so. And in that stretched second, a voice whispered again, clear as stars, "Chrono Legion." Then it was gone. The hum ceased. The crystal lay still and inert. George let out a breath, shaking his head. Retired systems analysts didn't end up in impossible wars across broken timelines. They fed the dogs. They walked to the letterbox. They kissed their wives good morning. And yet, as he rose to start the day, George found himself glancing at the clock differently, at the way the second hand ticked forward. For the first time in 74 years, he wasn't entirely sure whether time was moving him, or if he was moving it. The adventure was over, or perhaps it was only waiting.